Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you a story about a man who never finished anything, and if you listen carefully, you might realize his story sounds a lot like your own. This is the story of a struggling young man and an old carpenter who taught him a simple 30-day method that changed his life and helped him complete every goal he ever started. There was once a young man named Daniel who was full of dreams. He had notebooks filled with plans, goals written on sticky notes, and reminders set on his phone. He wanted to start a business, learn a new language, get fit, read more books, and wake up early. Every Sunday night he felt excited, convinced that this week would be different. But by Wednesday, his motivation faded. By Friday, he felt tired and disappointed. And by the end of the month, he was surrounded by half-finished projects and quiet frustration. Daniel wasn't lazy. He worked hard at his job and genuinely wanted to improve his life. The problem was that he started everything with excitement and ended almost nothing. Each unfinished goal felt like a small failure, and those failures slowly built a wall inside his mind. He began to doubt himself. He told himself stories like, "I'm just not disciplined," or "I'm the kind of person who never follows through." Those thoughts hurt more than he wanted to admit. One evening, after another long day of feeling stuck, Daniel took a walk through his neighborhood. He passed an old workshop he had never really noticed before. Inside, an elderly carpenter was working under a warm yellow light. The rhythmic sound of sanding wood was calm and steady. Something about it pulled Daniel closer. He stood at the doorway and watched as the carpenter carefully shaped a piece of wood, paying attention to every detail. The carpenter looked up and smiled. He invited Daniel inside and offered him a seat. The workshop smelled of fresh wood and sawdust. Finished furniture lined the walls, chairs, tables, shelves, each one polished and complete. Daniel felt a strange mix of admiration and envy. He told the carpenter how impressive the work was. The old man chuckled and said, "Every piece you see here started as a rough block. Most people only see the finished result. They don't see the days of patient work behind it." Without planning to, Daniel opened up about his struggles. He admitted that he couldn't seem to finish anything he started. The carpenter listened quietly, nodding with understanding. When Daniel finished speaking, the old man picked up a small unfinished stool from a corner. He placed it on the table between them and said, "This stool is like your goals. If I start 10 stools at once and work on them whenever I feel like it, none of them will be finished. My workshop would be full of half-built furniture. So I follow a simple rule: one piece, one plan, 30 days. Daniel leaned forward, curious. The carpenter explained that for every project, he committed to a 30-day method. For 30 days, he focused on a single piece of furniture. He broke the work into small daily tasks and completed them no matter how he felt. Some days he worked quickly and felt inspired. Other days he felt tired and slow. But he still showed up and did his part. At the end of 30 days, the piece was complete. The carpenter handed Daniel a small block of wood and a piece of sandpaper. He asked him to sand one side until it felt smooth. Daniel started eagerly, moving the sandpaper back and forth. After a few seconds, he grew impatient and tried to rush. The carpenter gently stopped him and said, "Feel the surface. Rushing leaves it rough. Consistent strokes make it smooth. Goals work the same way. It's not about speed. It's about steady effort." Then the carpenter shared the first lesson of the 30-day method: choose one goal only. He explained that the human mind becomes overwhelmed when it tries to chase too many things at once. Energy gets scattered, and progress slows. By choosing one meaningful goal, Daniel could focus all his attention and build momentum. The carpenter told him to pick a goal that truly mattered, not something chosen to impress others. The second lesson was to break the goal into tiny daily actions. The carpenter said that most people fail because their goals are too big and vague. Saying, "I will get fit," is overwhelming. Saying, "I will exercise for 20 minutes every day," is clear and manageable. Each small action is like a single stroke of sandpaper. Alone it seems insignificant, but repeated daily, it transforms the surface. The third lesson was to schedule the action at the same time every day. The carpenter explained that habits grow stronger when they are tied to a consistent routine. He worked in his workshop every morning at sunrise. Over the years, his body and mind learned to expect that rhythm. Daniel realized that his goals often depended on motivation, which came and went. A fixed schedule would remove the need to constantly decide when to act. The fourth lesson was to track progress visibly. The carpenter showed Daniel a calendar on the wall with marks on every day. Each mark represented a day he had worked on his current project. Seeing the chain of marks motivated him to keep going. He didn't want to break the streak. The visual record reminded him that progress was happening, even when it felt slow. The fifth lesson was to accept imperfect days. The carpenter admitted that some days he felt distracted or tired. On those days, he still completed the smallest version of his task. Even 10 minutes of work was enough to maintain the habit. He told Daniel that consistency beats intensity. Missing one day can easily turn into missing a week. Showing up, even imperfectly, keeps the momentum alive. Daniel left the workshop that night with a new sense of hope. He decided to apply the 30-day method to a single goal, writing for 30 minutes every evening. He chose a quiet corner of his apartment and set a specific time after dinner. On the first day, he felt excited and wrote more than he planned. He marked a bold X on his calendar and felt proud. The second day was harder. He came home tired and considered skipping the session. But he remembered the carpenter's words about imperfect days. He sat down and wrote slowly, counting the minutes. When he finished, he felt a small but meaningful victory. He added another mark to the calendar. Seeing 2 marks in a row created a sense of continuity he hadn't felt before. As the days passed, Daniel noticed subtle changes. The act of sitting down to write became easier. His resistance decreased. He stopped negotiating with himself about whether to do it. It was simply part of his routine. Some days his writing flowed effortlessly. Other days it felt clumsy. But he showed up every evening, honoring the commitment he had made. Around day 10, Daniel faced a busy week at work. Deadlines piled up, and stress filled his mind. The old pattern of abandoning his goals tried to return. One night he stared at his calendar and thought about skipping. Then he imagined the unfinished stool in the carpenter's workshop. He realized that breaking the chain would restart the cycle of disappointment. So he wrote for just 10 minutes. It wasn't perfect, but it kept the streak alive. By day 20, Daniel began to feel a quiet confidence growing inside him. For the first time in years, he was consistently following through on something he had started. The calendar was nearly full of marks, and each one represented a promise kept. His identity began to shift. Instead of seeing himself as someone who never finished anything, he started to see himself as a person who shows up. When day 30 arrived, Daniel completed his first full cycle. He looked at the calendar with pride and realized that the goal was no longer a struggle. Writing had become a habit. He visited the carpenter to share his success. The old man smiled and congratulated him, then asked what he planned to do next. Daniel said he wanted to continue writing and add a new goal using the same method. The carpenter nodded and reminded him that growth is built step by step. He warned Daniel not to overload himself too quickly. The power of the 30-day method lies in focus and patience. Each completed cycle strengthens discipline and self-trust. Over time, those qualities compound, leading to bigger achievements. Months passed, and Daniel applied the method to other areas of his life. He exercised daily, read regularly, and developed new skills. Each goal followed the same structure: one focus, small actions, consistent timing, visible tracking, and acceptance of imperfect days. His apartment slowly transformed from a space filled with unfinished projects to a place that reflected steady progress. More importantly, Daniel's inner world changed. The voice that once whispered doubt grew quieter. In its place emerged a calm belief in his ability to follow through. He understood that success was not a sudden leap but a series of small, repeated actions. The carpenter's workshop had taught him that completion is a craft, and like any craft, it improves with practice. One evening, Daniel returned to the workshop and found the carpenter finishing a beautiful table. He watched as the old man applied the final polish. The surface shone under the light. The carpenter stepped back and admired his work with quiet satisfaction. He turned to Daniel and said, "Every finished piece is a conversation between patience and persistence." Most people quit the conversation too early. Daniel realized that the 30-day method was more than a productivity trick. It was a philosophy of living. It encouraged him to respect the process, to honor daily effort, and to trust that small steps lead to meaningful destinations. He felt grateful for the lesson and promised himself to carry it forward. Years later, Daniel became known among his friends as someone who completed what he started. People asked him how he stayed so disciplined. He would smile and tell them about an old carpenter and a simple 30-day commitment. He explained that finishing goals is not about extraordinary talent or endless motivation. It is about choosing one thing, showing up every day, and refusing to let temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions. If you find yourself surrounded by unfinished plans and fading motivation, remember Daniel's story. Imagine the carpenter's workshop filled with completed pieces, each one the result of steady daily effort. Your goals are no different. They don't require perfection. They require presence. They ask you to return each day, to make another small stroke, and to trust the gradual transformation. The reason most people never finish anything is not a lack of ability. It is a lack of structure and patience. When you adopt the carpenter's 30-day method, you create a framework that supports consistency. You turn vague intentions into concrete actions. You build a bridge between who you are today and who you want to become. So choose one goal that matters to you. Break it into the smallest possible daily step. Schedule it at the same time each day. Track your progress where you can see it. And when difficult days arrive, do the smallest version instead of quitting. Let each completed day be a quiet promise to yourself that you are capable of finishing what you start. As you repeat this cycle, you will notice a powerful shift. Completion will stop feeling rare and start feeling normal. Your confidence will grow, not from words or wishes, but from evidence. Each finished goal will stand like a piece of furniture in your personal workshop, reminding you of your ability to create change. And one day, you will look back at the person who once struggled to finish anything and realize that they were simply waiting to learn the craft of consistency. The carpenter's lesson will echo in your mind: steady effort shapes rough beginnings into polished results. Keep sanding, keep showing up, and trust the process. Your finished goals are waiting on the other side of those 30 days.